We are going to need 2 blocks and a blanket today. And we're doing a variation on align and hold. This is a big variation. And so today we're going to actually start on our stomachs. And I want you to start in Nakrasana. And so we're going to try to walk one hand under one elbow and the other hand on top of the opposite elbow. It's like heads up, 7-up style. And then you'll walk your legs back as far as they'll go. And notice if it feels better for you to have the big toes touching and the heels splaying wide apart, or if it feels better for you to widen your legs apart, let the toes turn out and the heels turn in. So you're going to take a few moments to figure out what feels better in your back body there. And with the forearms really stacked on top of each other and then the head on the forearms, you might notice that you want to army crawl your elbows a little further forward and away from you. Or you might find that you're just completely content as you are. So we're at this point in our discussion of the anatomy of trust on the sensation or the concept of boundaries. And I particularly find boundaries very interesting and kind of challenging all at the same time, because there's that sort of need to make sure that your boundaries are firmly in place, but not so rigid that it becomes just kind of too much. And so what we're going to pay attention to today is just really how we can start to reimagine our notion of boundaries. And particularly when we're doing something like align and hold, where our boundaries might get pushed a little bit more readily than they do in other practices. I want you to just notice how you can be as compassionate with yourself as possible. So that was one of the things I read about boundaries that I thought was very fascinating, that having healthy boundaries allows us to be compassionate with self, and it allows us to be compassionate with others. And so as you're lying here, I'd like you to notice how you're feeling the contact with your body into the floor. Is there any part of you that needs to adjust so that you feel a little bit more held, a little bit more spacious? And as you continue to be in this posture, I'd like you to notice if we can start to focus on that breath. So breathing a little bit more into the ribs and the chest, maybe even breathing more into the abdomen, and just observing what that does for you. And as you continue to just really explore the deepening of your breath, we're really starting to notice how the breath is marked by the boundaries of our body. It's marked by the boundary of the floor. And yet it gives space for new things to start to open up. And that was one of the other things that I read about boundaries that I thought was interesting. Healthy boundaries are necessary for identity formation. And that identity formation is different depending upon the relationship that we're in. So we have different boundaries with different people in different situations. And they're really just allowing us to know what we choose to take on and what we will take on. So as you're here for this last minute or so, I'd like you to notice how you can start to expand and deepen your breath even more, allowing the breath to fill the inner landscape of the body and noticing how that sort of impacts and changes the outer landscape of the body. And as you're here for these last 30 seconds or so, I'd like you to just see how long, how expansive, how smooth, how even you can make the breath, not by force, because our boundaries, we want to make sure that they're not too rigid and not too loose. We want them to be buoyant. We want them to be soft and yet firm, if that makes any type of sense. And so we want to find that balance between the two. So as you take your last 2 breath cycles here, I'd like you to just check in and notice how you're feeling now. And then very gently, you'll start to lift your head away from your forearms, start to plant your hands alongside your ribs, and you'll press yourself up to a hands and knees position. Now, at this point in time, if you need to, by all means, go ahead and pad your knees with the blanket. Make sure both blocks are towards the upper outer corners of your mat. Awesome. And then we're just going to start to find a little bit more breath. So as you inhale, come to a cow shape position, keeping the breath as long and as fluid as it just was. And as you exhale, round through the spine, happy little cats. Adding on to this, inhale, coming back into that cow-shaped position. And exhale, press back to a modified child's pose. Shins stay parallel, bum comes to heels, arms stay on the floor. Great. Inhale, coming forward, hands and knees, cow shape. Exhale, round through the spine, cat shape. Inhale, back to cow. And exhale back to that modified child's pose. And you've got 2 more sets just like this. And as you continue to move in this way, notice how long you can make the breath. So the inhalation will naturally feel longer, but can you even out the exhalation so it can be as long as that in-breath? And then can you keep that in-breath nice and long? And then let the exhalation match that. Nice work. Good morning, Laura. Now we're going to add on. Next time you come forward, you'll inhale into cow. This time as you exhale, downward facing dog. And then you'll again inhale back to that cow shape. And exhale back to modified child's pose. And we'll do 3 more just like that. And as you inhale, you come forward and you let your head be the last thing to lift. And as you exhale, the hips lift up and back, the chin comes towards the chest, the armpits lift. Nice. And as you take these last 2 sets on your own, you're again seeing how long, how steady, how smooth you can make your breath. I can't say anything for you, but I do know my boundaries get pushed when I don't take the time that I need to move at the pace that I need to move at. And so all we're doing right now is just taking a moment to connect in to see what our natural rhythm is. And the breath is what's telling you what the natural rhythm is. Awesome. The next time you find yourself back into downward facing dog, you will stay there and we'll take our first held position. So we're all just taking our time to get there. And I'll start the clock once we've all gotten there. And so as we find ourselves in our first down dog, I encourage you to keep your knees as bent as they need to be. Continue to press down and forward through the hands and lift up through the happy inner armpits. And then see if you can keep that breath as buoyant, as full, as deep as it just was. So our boundaries are an act of compassion for self. Our breath is an act of compassion for self. And so we're seeing how we can deepen that breath, finding a sense of steadiness and stability in ourselves. Because really, it's like, as Brene Brown says, when we fully trust ourselves, that gives us the potential, the capacity to fully trust another. And so we're just working on that today. We're finding that sense of oneness with ourselves. And as you're here, you've got about 5 more steady breaths, and see where you might want to send that breath, where you might want to have a little bit more expansion internally, where you might want to have a little bit more ease internally. Nice work, guys. Take your last breath here. On your next in-breath, come down to hands and knees once again, tabletop position. Great. As you exhale, go ahead and stabilize the core, and then inhale, sweep your right arm up towards the sky, looking out and up to the right hand. As you exhale, thread that arm underneath you, bring the back of the palm, the shoulder, the ear to the mat. Maybe tuck that chin in towards your chest, press down through the left hand, and we've got a hold here. And as we're holding here, I want you to allow yourself to let the breath expand and deepen the twist. Let the breath open up that outer right arm, that outer right shoulder blade. Allow the breath to twist across the abdomens, maybe finding more space in that left side, even though it might feel crunchy. And you're just allowing yourself to see how this is moving, how this is feeling. You've got about 2 more breath cycles here. Nice work. On your next in-breath, push down into that left hand, sweep up through the right. And then you'll exhale and lower that hand down. Take a little movement if you need to before we do the other side, just to see how you feel. Our boundaries are something that are constantly being re-evaluated, renegotiated. And so then when you're ready, let's go ahead and come to stillness and we'll try the other side. Inhale, sweep the left arm out and up and overhead. And then exhale, thread that hand underneath you. Bring the back of the palm, the wrist, the ear, and shoulder to the mat. And then you might come to the tips of those right fingertips. And some of you might press down into the floor with the back of the left hand, palm, shoulder. Some of you might draw that chin into the chest a little bit more. But yep, I encourage you to continue to breathe and to notice what's naturally opening, what's naturally expanding. Our sense of trust, it really is built in the smallest of moments. And so is our sense of, I think, finding who we are, our sense of identity formation. And it's kind of ironic because, you know, in yoga, we talk a lot about getting rid of your ego, but my teacher talks a lot about you have to have one first before you can start to dissolve it. We've got 2 more breath cycles here. At the end of this next exhalation, let's go ahead and inhale, push down through that right arm, reach up through the left. And then exhale, lower the hand down. Okay, little gentle movement. And you're just checking in and seeing how you feel. And then we'll go ahead and come back to a still neutral spot. Make sure both sets of toes are curled under. Walk your hands about 1 handprint forward. Inhale, little cow shape. Exhale, downward facing dog, keeping your knees super, super bent. And again, pushing the index finger, the thumb down, the tips of the fingers down, lift up through your happy armpits. Draw the front ribs into the back body and lift your waist away from your shoulders and then your hips away from your waist. And then notice if you can start to pull the kneecaps up and reach the heels towards the floor. And you're just breathing here. And you're noticing how this feels. Notice if you can send more breath into the space between the shoulder blades and the upper back. Notice if you can allow the breath to fill all of the abdomen, all of the pelvic floor. We've got about 2 more breath cycles here. Awesome sauce. Let's go ahead and inhale, sweep your right leg up and back, keeping your hips really square. Taking a deep breath in, reaching up through that right heel, deep breath out, pushing through the hands. Another inhalation to lift the right leg a little higher. And then exhale, step your right foot between your hands. Now at this point in time, you might want to put your hands on your blocks. You might choose not to do that, but you'll inhale, lower the back knee, reach the heart and sternum forward. And then you'll exhale, straighten the back leg and lift the back thigh away from the floor. Yep. And you've got 3 more of those. Inhaling, lowering the back knee down, heart comes forward. Exhale, straightening the back leg, coming into a low lunge. Yep. And again, see how smooth and steady you can make the breath. See how much you can open that heart space as you move. Awesome sauce. The next time you come up into that low lunge, we're going to pause. Awesome. So from this low lunge, let's all reach back through our inner left thigh, left big toe mound. Push down into your right foot, right heel until you feel your right butt cheek start to come online. And then everyone make your fingertips light. Make your fingertips light. Make your fingertips light. You might choose to stay here. You might choose to make your fingertips even lighter and draw your hands to heart center. But we're going to hold here, and you're going to push down into that front foot. You're going to reach back through that back foot, drawing that outer right hip back, pushing down into that big toe mound. And then you're going to notice if you can breathe, keeping that front knee bent to as much of a 90-degree angle as possible. Yeah. And we're just pausing, and we're breathing, and we're pausing, and we're breathing. Your next exhalation, you'll lower the hands back down to the floor. You'll step back, plank pose, fallen kasana. And we're going to pause here. We're going to breathe. Make sure the hands are underneath the shoulders, lifting up through the inner armpits and lengthening back through the tail. And now that we just did something that was probably pretty hard, I want you to notice how you're breathing. How is that breath now? How is that establishment of the boundary? Can you lift the back of the head so your skull radiates out through the spine? And you've got about 4 more breath cycles here, just pressing the floor away, lifting through the happy inner armpits, lifting through your inner thighs. At the end of your next exhalation, I want you to bend your knees and lift your hips, downward facing dog. So now that we're back to downward facing dog, can you check in and notice what you notice now? Where's the breath? How is the body? How can you find your breath, finding it become more big, more deep, more full? And allowing that to be sort of the gauge by which you can practice being curious about how you are doing at this moment. We've got about 3 more breath cycles here. Awesome sauce. Let's go ahead and inhale, sweep your left leg up and back. And you'll pause here for a complete breath cycle, exhaling, pressing the hands down and forward, lifting up through those happy inner armpits. Take another inhale to lift the left leg a little higher, root the right leg down a little bit more. And then as you exhale, step your left foot quietly between your hands. And again, you might place your hands on the blocks. You might keep your hands on the floor, but you'll inhale, lower that back knee to touch the floor, heart lifts, gaze lifts. And then exhale, go ahead and straighten that back leg long. And you've got 3 more of these. And we're really seeing how much we can sort of reach back through your back heel as you lower the back knee to the floor. It'll give you this crazy stretch across the front of your right thigh if you do that. And you're really keeping that back foot active. You're really keeping that front foot active. You're noticing all the small little things that are integral to you in this moment. Awesome sauce. And after your next one, that should have been 4, we'll go ahead and straighten that back leg long. And before we go any further, let's all squeeze all the muscles around our back right leg, reach back through your inner right thigh, back through your right heel, push down into your left foot. And then I want you to make your fingertips light. And you might stay here with hands towards the floor. You might make them even lighter and draw hands to heart center. And then some of you came all the way up to vertical. Some of you stayed in that sort of 90, almost not really 90-degree diagonal. Whichever one you're choosing, you're pushing down through that front foot. You're reaching back through that back foot. You're hugging that together. And then you're breathing. You're breathing. You're breathing. How are you being compassionate to yourself amongst the challenge of the shape? That's really what our boundaries are there for. How can we be compassionate to ourselves? How can we be compassionate to others amidst whatever the heck life happens to have thrown at us? So we're just breathing. We're breathing. You got about 2 more breath cycles here. You're breathing. At the end of your next exhalation, the hands will come back to the floor and we're stepping back to plank once again. And you'll just pause and you'll breathe and you'll pause and you'll breathe. And for some of you, I'd like to have you shift your weight forward so your shoulders are slightly forward of your wrists. Lift up through those happy inner armpits again. Yep. Lift up through the back of your head and then lengthen your tailbone back like a lot. Yep. And we're going to breathe here. And we're going to breathe, and we're going to breathe, and we're noticing the weight into the index fingers and the thumbs. We're pressing down through the tips of the fingertips as the shoulders wrap away from your ears. And you've got 2 more long, steady breath cycles here. And then at the end of that second exhalation, you will shift your weight forward and lower slower than you want to, all the way to the floor, touching thighs, belly, chest, all at the same time. Slower than you want to, slower than you want to, slower than you want to. Awesome sauce, people. Great. And then once you get down, extend the tops of the feet to the floor, lengthen tailbone back, pubic bone back. Slide the hands back just a millimeter so thumbs are roughly in line with your nipples. And then as you inhale, hug the shoulder blades onto the back, hug the elbows towards each other, pull the heart forward through the gates of your arms. And then you'll exhale and lower down. And you've got 4 of these. And you can come up as high as you want. I do encourage you to keep those legs and feet active so it keeps the low back protected, or rather at least lengthened. And you're just going to take 4 of these. And you're noticing how long you can make that inhalation and exhalation, how smooth you can make that inhalation and exhalation. And after you've done 4, you're going to do a 5th, and that one we're going to hold. And once you come up for that 5th one, again, reaching out through the inner thighs, pressing the big toenails down, the pinky toenails down, the tailbone lengthens back a lot. Yeah, there you go, Barbara. The pubic bone scoops forward and up. The elbows hug together, the shoulder blades hug together. And then notice how you can soften. There you go, Jenny. Soften around your ears, soften around your jaw. Let the breath be deeper and see if it now can breathe into the boundaries of the floor, pressing against the abdomen. Breathe up into the chest, into the ribs, finding the spaciousness there. One of the things I really enjoy about dance in particular is that there are certain rules, and it's funny that those rules give you the potential and the possibility to expand in so many other ways. And I think that's what happens with certain boundaries. They allow us to expand in certain ways. And so that's what you're doing here in the breath. See if you can use the floor to expand the breath into the chest. And at the end of your next exhalation, you'll slowly lower the chest all the way back down. Happy days. Press to hands and knees and make your way back to downward facing dog. And again, once you're in down dog, I want you to notice how you can breathe here. So we want to keep lifting those inner armpits up and away from the floor. There you go. And then use that to spread the breath across the upper back. Use that to spread the breath into the abdomen. Really, you can see it and feel the belly distend and contract as you breathe in and as you breathe out. We've got about 4 more breath cycles here, and you're just noticing how this is going, noticing how you are at this moment in time and how you might be a little bit more understanding, kind, patient, whatever you would like to call compassion for yourself. Great, let's add on. Inhale, lift your right leg up and back. Keep those hips square. As you exhale, press the floor away a little bit more, especially through that left hand. Yep. Inhale, lift that right leg a little higher. And then exhale, quietly step that right leg long and forward. So really long stance forward. Great. Spin your back foot, your left foot to the floor. And then bring that right hand either to a block or the floor, inside or outside your front foot, whichever one works for you. And we're going to take extended side angle. So then you'll slide that left arm up and alongside your ears, reaching it so the palm faces down. And as we come into this shape, let's go ahead and take a moment to bend into that front knee as best as we can. Hug that outer right hip back, reach out through the left arm. And then notice if you can pause and notice if you can breathe. And again, this will be a fun one because the body starts talking to us really quickly. So I want you to see if you can continue to push down into that right foot, press down through the left pinky toe, find a little bit more space. And you've got about 2 more breath cycles here. Awesome. Sauce. At the end of your next exhale, sweep your left arm back and come to warrior two. Virba Hadrasana 2. Awesome. And again, we want to continue to make sure that right knee is bent. Notice if you can reach out through your back arm as much as you're reaching through your front arm. And in warrior two, you'll see if you can find a little bit more length through the vertebra. A little bit more depth and power in the legs. Awesome sauce. You've got 3 more breath cycles here. Nice work, guys. At the end of your next exhalation, push down through that front leg to straighten your right leg long. Keep pulling that right kneecap up a lot, and then inhale, reach forward, out and down to bring the right hand to the shin block or floor, either inside or outside that front leg. And again, we're going to pause. I want everyone to see if they can make their underside, their right side, longer and longer and longer. So it feels like you send your right butt back and your right shoulder forward. And then wrap the right ribs under. There you go, Sandy. And see if you can stack that left shoulder on top. And then that left arm, the top arm is reaching out 180 degrees. So you're as open and as expansive across the chest, but you've got this firm foundation of pushing the legs down into the floor, of reaching the tailbone away from the crown, of breathing deeply as you can into the ribs, noticing how there's a new boundary here. And you've got about 3 more breath cycles. The end of your next exhalation, turn your gaze to the floor, come to a low lunge facing the top of your space and pause. Listen very closely. Plant both hands on the mat. Step your right leg back to meet your left. Then spin both heels over to the left. And you can start to either lower the bottom knee down and take a modified side plank or reach the top arm up. And we're going to pause and we're going to breathe. And you're just noticing what's going on now. How can you be compassionate to self now, no matter which variation you're in? And you've got about 3 more breath cycles here. The end of your third exhalation, you'll lower your right hand down. You'll press back to downward facing dog, and you'll pause. You'll pause. You'll pause. You'll pause. How can you be compassionate to self? How can you find a little bit more awareness? One of the things I found that I liked about boundaries was it was taking an active choice in what we were choosing to be responsible for, what we were choosing to be accountable for, what we decided, yes, that is something I want to do. That's such a fascinating way to look at it. We've got another 4 to 5 breaths here. And see if you can allow yourself to notice where you want to choose to be responsible for this shape, where you want to choose to be responsible for your breath, and how you want to choose to be responsible for your life, your being, the way that it is unfolding. Awesome sauce. All right, let's go ahead and try the other side. Inhale, sweep your left leg up and back. Exhale, press the hands down and forward, draw those front ribs in, and then inhale, lift that left leg a little higher. Yep. Exhale, quietly step that foot between your hands. Awesome sauce. Once you get there, we'll spin the back foot to the floor, making sure we've got a long stance. And then the left hand might come to the inside edge of that left foot or stay on the outside edge of the left foot, hand on block. And start to make sure you can ripple your rib cage to the right and then sweep that right arm alongside your ears. And as we come into extended side angle, we're going to make sure that we're still bending into that front leg. So as we're in Uttita Parsva Konasana, we're bending into that left leg. Draw your outer left hip back. Gently bend into the front knee even more. Yep. Draw your outer left hip back and hug it into your inner right thigh. Yep. I know you got a lot of craziness going on over there, but you're doing good. And then we're going to see how we can breathe. How can there be more length on our underside, our left side? How can our heart remain open? If our boundaries become what we are choosing to take on, that seems like such an empowering thing to do. You got 3 more breath cycles here. We're finding length through our right pinky finger down through our right pinky toe. And at the end of your next exhalation, you can place that right arm back and come into Virba, Hedrasana 2, Warrior 2. Nice job, people. And then again, we want to see if our stance is okay for us. If that front knee is still bent to about a 90-degree angle, that knee pretty centered over the center of our ankle, pressing down into the back foot, and you're reaching out as much into the back hand as you are through the front arm. So our sense of boundaries is really owning where our past is, where we're headed in the future, and being grounded in that present. We don't have to just, I don't know, I personally strive for boundaries that I'll establish in the future, and that's just not so helpful all the time. And so we're just seeing where we're at, how the breath is, how we are in this moment, and making sure that gaze is pretty steady, pretty consistent. You got 2 more breath cycles here. Still powering through that front knee at a pretty 90-degree angle bend. Nice job, guys. Next inhale, straighten front leg long. As you exhale, pull that front kneecap up, push down into that back leg, and then inhale, reach forward, out and down, lowering left fingertips to shin, block, or floor. And before you go anywhere, I want you to think of sending your left butt back behind you, your left shoulder forward, and then wrap those left ribs under, right ribs on top. And then continuing to push down through the legs, lengthen the skull away from the pelvis, and maybe extend that right arm up for a 180-degree open chest, expanded heart thing. Yep. Laura, draw your chin to your chest just a smidge. Yep. And then from there, just turn your gaze up. Yeah. Great. You got 2 to 3 more steady, steady, steady breath cycles here. And again, can you breathe very deeply into that top side, the right side? Can you allow space to come into that bottom side, the left side? Great. At the end of your next exhalation, turn your gaze to the floor, lower your hands to the floor, come to a low lunge. Hands on the mat. Go ahead and step your left leg back to meet the right. Spin both heels to the right. And you might lower that bottom leg down and take a modified side plank. You might stack both feet. You might keep the feet in front of each other, but you're going to pause. You're choosing what you wish to be accountable for. And we're just pausing and we're breathing, and we're pausing and we're breathing. And you've got about 4 more steady breath cycles here. And you're just noticing, how is it going? At the end of your next exhalation, go ahead and lower that top hand to the floor. Press back to downward facing dog or child's pose, whichever feels better to you. And we'll pause and we'll breathe. And we've got a minute, so if you start off in one of those shapes, don't worry, we'll go to the other one. So you just pause and you breathe. Awesome. So if you were in down dog, go to child's. If you were in child's, go to down dog. And you're just pausing and you're breathing and you're noticing what you notice. Awesome. Sauce. All right. My friends that are in child's pose, please come back up to hands and knees. And we'll all make our way back to downward facing dog. Okay. This one's going to be a little interesting. Inhale, sweep your right leg up and back. As you exhale, step that foot between your hands. Okay, so sort of a repeat of what we did earlier, but slightly different. Hands on blocks if you'd like them. Inhale here, reaching your heart and sternum forward in this lunge. As you exhale, go ahead and straighten that front leg long. Heart melts towards your sternum. Yep, and you got 3 more of those. So inhaling, coming forward, reaching back through that left heel. And then exhale, straightening the front leg long. And you've got 2 more on your own. And you're really just trying to pay attention. What are the boundaries that your hamstrings are presenting for you? How are they interacting with you today? What are they telling you about how you're doing today? Awesome sauce. The next time your heart is melted towards your front shin and both legs are straight, we're going to pause there for a few breaths. And you're going to draw that outer right hip back, press down from your right sit bone to your right big toe, lift up through your inner left thigh, and then just see how you're doing here, how the breath is moving in the body, how you can make it a deeper breath to let that fill out the body. And you've got about 4 more steady breath cycles here. Where can you soften? Where can you be more compassionate, understanding, considerate, patient, kind to yourself? How can we allow that to be a part of the process of our identity formation, a part of what we're choosing to take on as our responsibility? And then you'll take a big inhale here. Your next exhale, let it be deep. And then inhale, shift your weight forward, low lunge. Lower the back knee all the way down to the floor. Pad if you need to. Push down into the back knee, push down into the front foot. Suck those points together and you'll bring your spine up to vertical. And some of you will keep your right hand on your right thigh. Some of you will just reach up with both hands, but we're going to definitely reach up with your left hand. And I want you to see if you can push down through your limbs, so the foot and the knee, lengthen the tailbone down, reach the heart and sternum forward, and see if the heart can come forward just a little bit more. Now, if you've got both arms up, you're still pushing into that front heel a lot. You're squeezing the front foot towards the back knee. You're reaching up through the arms, and you're seeing if you can find more expansion through the collarbones, through the chest as you breathe. Nice job. You got 3 more breaths here. See if you can lift through your pinky fingers a little bit more, Jenny, and see if that draws your chest up and forward a little bit, and then soften across the knee. Awesome. On your next exhale, let's go ahead and bring the hands back down to the floor. Straighten the back leg long. Plant the palms and step back, downward facing dog, and we'll just go directly to the other side. Lied. Take 3 breaths here before you do that. Give your body a moment to settle before we go directly to the other side. Okay, then let's go to the other side. So inhale, lift your left leg up and back. And then exhale, quietly step that foot between your hands. Hands come to blocks. And then just as we did before, inhale, heart and sternum lifts forward, and then exhale, straighten the front leg long, shifting your pelvis back, coming into a modified pyramid. And you've got 4 of these, and you're just noticing how the body is working. How are you responding to your own boundaries? Do you force them? Do you ignore them? Do you break them? Or do you use them as guides and lessons, or teachers rather? And it's very interesting because I think if we pay attention to really all the sensations that we're feeling, our body does tell us well in advance when we're crossing a boundary. Go ahead on your next one and you'll stay with both legs straight. Our body tells us, our breath tells us. How is your breath doing right now? How is the body doing right now? Where can you find more spaciousness? Where can you soften just a smidge? Awesome sauce. Next in breath, let's go ahead and come forward, low lunge. Lower that back knee all the way down to the floor. Press into the front foot, push into the back knee. That's hilarious. And then you'll start to bring your spine up to vertical. And again, you might keep the left hand on the left thigh and just extend the right arm up. You might reach up through both arms, but we're trying to see if we can push down into the support of our boundaries, knowing where we're at to find that lift and that expansion. So the more you can push down to the front foot, down into the back knee, sucking those points together, lengthening the tailbone down, it gives the length through the vertebra for the arms to reach up. Maybe the pinky finger spiral forward a little bit more, and you notice how that wraps the shoulder blades. And then lifting the ribs away from the hips. And then seeing if you can breathe. And then notice if your face has gotten some clenchiness going on. See if you can soften that a little. It's not a real scientific term, but keep pushing in that front heel, Laura. Big toe mound too. Yeah. On your next exhale, both hands come down to the floor. Slight variation. Straighten the back leg long. Turn both feet towards the right side of your mat and come into a wide-legged forward fold. And so now that you're in Prasarita Padottanasana, make sure the pinky toe edges of your feet are parallel to the short edges of your mat. Notice how it feels for you to just hang and descend in this manner. Roberta, shift your weight forward towards your head just a little bit. Yep. And then from there, see if you can root from your pelvis down to your legs. So weight comes forward and then pelvis roots down. Yeah, there you go. It's a lot of work in your legs. Awesome. You've got 3 more breath cycles here. At the end of your next exhalation, plant your hands underneath your shoulders if they're not there, and you're going to start to wiggle walk your feet so they are hip distance apart. Wiggle walk your feet so they're hip distance apart. Great. And you're going to hang out here for a few breath cycles, bending the knees as much as you need to so the feet are hip distance apart. So you're in a standing forward fold. You let your head drape forward. The legs are as bent as they need to be. This is generally one of those shapes we start the beginning of class with. And so just notice how it feels to be here now. Kneecaps pull up if the legs are straight. If the knees are bent, let the head be heavy and root down into the whole bottom of your foot. See if you can let the head be even heavier. So it's just that bowling ball hanging off the crown or hanging off the skull. Got 4 more breath cycles here. Awesome. Sauce. All right. Feet hip distance apart. Slide your hands up your shins. Inhale, lift your spine halfway. As you exhale, let's start to bend our knees and bring our hands to the outside edges of our shins. Bend your knees. Spine stays parallel-ish to the floor. Push your hands out into your shins and push your shins out into your hands. Bend your knees as much as you can, and then draw your hands to heart center. Start to bring your spine to vertical. And I want you to still sit in chair pose. And this one's a weird one. I want you to think of blossoming your buttocks back. So it feels like you're arching your back. Push your sternum into your thumbs into your sternum. Lift up through the crown. Bend your knees as much as you can. So here's another shape that we typically do earlier in the practice. And you're just noticing how this is going. Knees bent, shift your weight back so it's in your heels. There you go. Sit your pelvis a little closer to the floor, reach your sternum and heart up, but then notice how you're breathing. Notice how you're breathing. Notice how you're breathing. Got about 4 more steady breath cycles here. Now, as much as you're not going to want to do this, you're going to try to sit your butt even lower and come all the way down into toe squat. Sit your butt even lower to come all the way down into toe squat. And if you choose to turn around the other way, you can do that too. But we're just going to come into toe squat. Make sure your pinky toes are tucked under. And then once you find yourself in toe squat, knees on the floor, we're going to take eagle arm. So you'll wrap your right arm underneath, your left arm on top. And then inhale, lift the elbows, maybe lift the gaze. And exhale, hug the elbows down towards your navel, maybe around your chin towards your chest. We've got 4 more of these. So inhaling, lifting, and exhaling, rounding through the upper back. And inhaling, lifting, and exhaling, rounding. And let's just do 1 more. We'll do 4 on each side. Awesome. On your next inhalation, arms open out. And then exhale, other arm on top. And then you'll just got 4 of those. So inhaling, lifting, and exhaling down. And 3 more. And you're just noticing how this feels. The boundary is created now with the arms in the front. What do you feel in the back of the body as you do this? What do you feel happening in your feet? At the end of your 4th exhalation, you'll inhale, unwind your arms. Hands will come down to the floor. You'll pitter-patter your toes. Happy little release. Feel free to take a counter stretch if you'd like, shifting the weight back. Great. And those of you that are facing the side of your mat, turn to face the front again. We're going to come to forearms and knees now. So you're going to bring your hands down, palms touch, prayer position. Knees are directly underneath your hips. Start to round through your spine a lot. Awesome. And then step your right foot back and step your left foot back. And we're going to just find ourselves in forearm plank. So the armpits lift, the hips and the shoulders are roughly in the same line. Your inner thighs are lifting up. And you're just rounding into the upper back a lot, pressing the outer elbows down into the floor. There you go, Barbara. And just breathing. And then notice if you're pressing evenly through your hands. Are you pressing more through one arm than the other? And see if you can even that out. And you've got about 4 more steady breath cycles here. At the end of your 4th exhalation, you'll lower your knees down and take child's pose once again. This time I encourage you to sweep your arms back behind you if you didn't do so the first time. And you'll just pause and you'll just breathe. Where in your own life do you feel like you sometimes struggle with trust? And how might your boundaries be a consideration for you to look at? Knowing where you want to be compassionate to self, knowing where you understand your own sense of self and what you want to choose to take on responsibility for. So saying all that, we're going to take dolphin now. If you choose not to do that, because that's your act of self-love, by all means, do not do that. You can choose to stay here, or you can take forearm stand or forearm plank once again. But the rest of us who are choosing to do this will come forward, forearms and knees on the floor. You'll round through your upper back like a Halloween cat. You'll tuck your toes under and lift your hips high. And I encourage you to keep the knees as bent as they need to be. And then you can walk the feet as close towards your face as possible. But everyone, we want to keep lifting through our happy inner armpits and pushing down. There you go, Sandy, through our forearms. Nice, Jenny, nice. Nice, guys. Good job, Laura. Good job, Jason. Good job, Erica and Barbara and Laura and Sandy. Good job, Roberta. Good job, people. Okay, and you're just going to stay here and you're going to pause and you're going to breathe and you're going to notice. How is it going? How is it going? You got 2 more breath cycles here. And at the end of your next exhalation, you'll lower your knees down and you'll either rest in child's pose or just sit on top of your shins for Virabhadrasana. Choose whichever one works for you. But your eyes will be closed in either way. And you're just going to take a moment to check in. How are you doing? Got about 5 more steady breaths here. And I want you to see how big you can make your breath, how full, how deep. So the first 3 weeks, we talked about integrity, about, those that we have a sense of trust with, they have a sense of integrity. They help us be the best versions of ourselves instead of doing what's fast, fun, or easy. And then we talked about those that are reliable, consistency being important. Now we're talking about boundaries, how that self-formation, that identity, knowing where we end and another begins is really important for trust. Helps us know what we want to be accountable for. All right, so if you're in child's pose, please go ahead and sit up. If you are in Vajrasana, bring your butt to the floor. Well, we'll all bring our butts to the floor and we'll sit down for a moment in Dandasana, staff pose. This is just to get us into the next shape. Awesome sauce. If you need to sit up on a blanket, by all means, please sit up on a blanket. If you feel like your hammies are still like, yeah, there's a boundary and they're not very happy right now, then you're going to sit on the edge of that blanket. And then we'll bend both of our knees and you're going to slide your left shin to the floor. So your left heel comes outside of your right butt and you'll slide your right foot outside of your left. So we're coming in for Ardha Matsyendrasana. Yep. And then from here, we'll wrap the left arm around our right shin thigh thing. Right hand comes back behind us. First things first, I want you to push down into the points of contact. So hand, right foot, right butt cheek, left butt cheek. And as you exhale, you'll scoop the belly on the right side and see if you can rotate towards the right. And we'll stay here for a few minutes. And some of you might find that if you push that right knee out into your left arm and you pull that left arm into your right knee as you push down into your right big toe, you'll find a fun stretch happening in your outer right hip. And everyone, we want to see if we can keep the spine upright. Yep. And the heart as open as it can be. And you're just pausing and you're breathing. And you're pausing and you're breathing. We've got about 4 more breath cycles here. Nice work. At the end of your next exhalation, you'll inhale and gently unwind the spine. Just sit for a moment in a cross-legged position to just notice what you notice between the sides. And sit as tall as you can so the heart still stays open. I think that's one of the things that I'm finding interesting about this whole challenge of boundaries. The heart still stays open. It's really a compassionate place of knowing where I stop and you begin, or you stop and I begin, and being okay with that. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and try the other side. So if your legs are crossed, please uncross them and plant both feet on the floor. Then we're going to slide our right shin to the floor, drawing our right heel outside of our left hip. Our left foot comes outside of our right thigh. If you need to, you might need to lift your butt and slide it over to the right a little bit. Then we'll wrap our right arm around our left knee, shin thing. Left hand comes back behind us, push down into the floor to lift up through the spine. And then you'll exhale, start to scoop the belly on the left side to rotate the right ribs towards the left. And again, you might just stay there happy as a clam. You might decide to push your left big toe into the floor as you push your left shin into your right arm and pull your right arm into your left shin. And sometimes that just, sends more sensation up to the outer left hip, which feels kind of nice and might also traction more of your spine. But again, the emphasis on verticality through the spine, finding that sense of integrity, everything being in alignment. And then the rotation happens after that. And so as we come back, or start to come back to where we started, I want you to check in with your breath. How's it doing? How are you doing? Got about 4 more breath cycles in that twist. Sorry, that was a vague cue. It's like, as we come back, where are we gone? No, not yet. All right, here's your last exhale here. Inhale gently, unwind the legs. This time, extend both legs in front of you, Dandasana, staff pose. Take a moment to sit. See if the heart can stay open. The low back has its natural lordotic curve. And then we'll slowly make our way onto our back. So some of you will turn around and some of you will stay exactly as you are, depending upon what works for you. But make sure your blocks are somewhere easily accessible to you. Make sure your blankets are somewhere easily accessible to you. And yeah, this is a great time to start to cover up. I love how you guys have all gotten that in your schedule. It's like when we're laying on our backs, make sure we're all warm before we lay down. We do have a few more things before you go to Shavasana, but you are going to lay down on your back and you're just going to see how you feel. Some of you will keep your legs long. Some of you will choose to bend your knees. It really doesn't matter. It just matters for you to feel the support beneath you and what enables you to feel that. So that's one of the other fun things. Boundaries can sometimes feel like a sense of support. Again, I was talking about in dance, there are lots of rules, but they're very nurturing in a weird, odd way. If you know what things you can't do, it really does give more freedom to the things that you can do. All right, so we're going to do a few more things before we wind down. Let's bend both of our knees and plant our feet on the floor, hip distance apart. Some of you will choose to plant a block in between your upper inner thighs. Some of you will be like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. So you choose what works for you. We're going to do a series of dynamic bridges before we hold them. So make sure you have room up and over your head. As you inhale, let's push down through our feet, lift our hips, lift our arms alongside our bodies and up and over our ears. And as you exhale, slowly bring everything back to that starting position. So hands and hips back down to where they started. Yep. And you've got 3 more of those. And I encourage you to move as slowly as your breath allows. Yeah. And you're moving as slowly as your breath allows. Taking in the full inhalation, squeezing that block as you do if you're using one. And then taking that full exhalation, squeezing the block as you do. Nice. And after you've done 4, you'll just keep your hands alongside your hips and you'll rest there while we wait for everyone before we take the held one. Awesome sauce. From here, let's push down through our feet, lift our hips high, walk your shoulder blades underneath you. You might choose to interlace the hands, you might choose not to, but you're gonna push down through the feet. I want everyone to push down through the big toe mound, especially if you're working with that block, you're hugging it in. And then lengthen the tailbone away from your crown, reaching it towards the knees. And then notice if you can wrap more of the upper arm underneath you, lifting the sternum close to your chin slightly away from the sternum, and press down into the center of your skull, right between where your ears are. And then you're just pausing and you're breathing, and you're pausing and you're breathing. We've got about 4 more steady breath cycles here. Filling the chest with as much breath as you are able, filling the back body with as much breath as you are able. At the end of your next exhalation, you'll gently unclasp the hands, untuck the shoulders, bring the pelvis to the floor, and pause. And just pause. And just see, how does the right side and the left side of the body feel? What information is the floor giving you in terms of how your body's doing? How does that help you just know where you are, sense where you are, understand where you are? Okay, for this next one, let's make sure you've got both blocks. You're gonna make sure you remove that block from in between your thighs, and you can plant one or both blocks underneath your sacrum as you come to a supported bridge. And please take the time to make sure that block or blocks are really at a place that feels really supportive to you. And some of you will choose to stay right here with both feet firmly rooted on the floor, the pelvis firmly supported by that block. Some of you might choose to extend your legs long beneath you, and some of you might choose to extend your legs up and overhead. Again, the boundary is what thing do you want to take on, the shape that you take and the confinement that you choose based on that shape is what you want to choose to take on. And those who still have their hands on the floor, see if you can draw the shoulder blades together underneath you so the heart still lifts no matter what the legs are doing. And if the legs are up, the feet are active, the kneecaps are pulling down towards your pelvis, the big toe mounds are pressing up, the inner thighs, inner shin bones are hugging in towards each other, even if they don't touch. And then we're here for this final moment, I want you to bring your awareness to the breath. So as you inhale, you breathe from your pelvis up towards the crown of your head. And as you exhale, the breath travels back down towards your pelvis. So you inhale, the breath travels from your pelvis up towards the crown of your head. And as you exhale, the breath travels back down. Okay, you've got about 4 more breath cycles here. And again, you're just really paying attention to the movement of the breath. As you inhale, your awareness travels from the pelvis up. And as you exhale, your awareness travels from that point all the way back down to your pelvis. At the end of your next exhalation, if your legs are up, gently bend your knees and slowly plant the feet on the floor. If the legs are long, start to walk the feet back, and we'll all pause with our pelvis on that block for a moment before we go anywhere. And before you do go anywhere, activate the strength in your legs, engage the backs of the legs, Push down into the feet, lift your pelvis from the block, remove the block, and bring your butt back down to the floor. And then just take a moment to pause here. Take a moment to pause here. And just notice what you notice. Okay, so you are free to do whatever you want at this point, but what I would encourage you to do first is to do a single leg stretch, one on each side before you draw both knees into your chest. And if you take that single leg stretch, the other leg is long on the floor beneath you so that you can really find I'm trying to make sure the two innominate bones of the pelvis work. So one leg is in and then the other leg is long. You make sure you do both sides. And as you continue to explore whatever feels good to you at this point, I do encourage you to really be curious about your own boundaries. If we think of it as that which we choose to take on, let yourself take these final few moments as being that which you choose to take on. And so conversely, of course, it also means that which you choose not to take on. And that's good too. So my friends that are doing things that are asymmetrical, please make sure you visit both sides. That's funny, Beth says that. I now hear her cueing me saying that. She often says, my friends. And then the final shape that I would encourage us to take is one that is symmetrical. So either Supta Baddha Konasana, Shavasana, something, even constructive rest could be symmetrical. You pick something that feels like it's nurturing and nourishing for you, something that feels like it's compassionate for you, that helps you develop a little bit more kindness or understanding for where you are. And once you find yourself in that final spot, final shape, do encourage you to fidget around as much as you need to until you can find stillness and support, or rather stillness and stability. As you continue to settle in, continue to let yourself fall in, to drop in. I think from a yogic perspective, our boundaries are really amazing because they help us really see things a little bit more clearly. The term that's often used is, you're seeing things, you're seeing reality, seeing what's true, you're seeing prakriti versus purusha, you're seeing consciousness. And it only becomes possible when you can see that duality. So as you continue to drop in, just notice what you notice. Noticing the space between your thoughts, space between your breath. Gently return your awareness to your breath. As you come back to your breath, just take a moment to pause. Take a moment to check in. If there's any part of you that longs to linger in this shape, by all means, just hang out here. When you are ready to move, you'll invite small movement into the body as you make your way to your right side. And from your right side, you'll just pause there for a few breaths. From there, you'll slowly make your way to a tall and comfortable seat. When you're vertical, I do encourage you to elevate your bum on a block or on a blanket. And once you're established in your seat, we're just going to end with 6 rounds of Nadi Shodhana. So using your right hand, you'll go ahead and block your left nostril with your right thumb and then just inhale through your left nostril. Top of your inhalation, you'll close your left nostril and slowly exhale out just through your right. When you need to, you'll draw the breath in through the right. Top of your inhalation, you'll close your right and exhale out through your left. And you'll just repeat that 5 more times. And as best as you can, you're just noticing how smooth and how steady you can make the breath. You're noticing how patient you can be with yourself as you breathe at whatever pace you happen to breathe at. And you continue to work at whatever pace you're working at. After you've taken your 6 rounds, you just lower your right hand. Wherever you are in your practice, maintain a tall vertical spine, heart open. And you just stay with the breath. The breath is a beautiful thing. It really is one of the first indications of how we're doing. And the more that we can become attuned to it, it helps us know the nature of our heart. It helps us know the nature of our mind. And so, as you're here with you for these last few breaths, I just invite you to notice what you notice. Gently draw your hands to heart center, Anjali Mudra. Press the palms into each other. Receive the weight of your thumb into your sternum and press your sternum into your thumb. Soften your chin towards the nook of your neck and gently exhale all of the breath from your mouth. Take a big breath in. Audible breath out. Inhale for Om. Join if you'd like. Om. To that light, to that breath, and to that boundary, we bow. Namaste.